Every day, hateful and racist comments get posted online.
Maybe you've seen something like this. Or maybe you've heard racist sayings among your friends. Whether you heard this or not, this is something that happens on a daily basis.
Here we see the percentage who would feel uncomfortable having an immigrant as their home aide, neighbor, or daughter or son-in-law. We can see that the percentage has slightly went downhill, but racism still happens, and I believe that it happens in a more hidden way. By looking at this figure, we can see that not that many people would have problems having an immigrant neighbor. But when it comes to having an immigrant home aide or a daughter or son-in-law, the graph rises. I believe it's because we can choose not to surround ourselves with the neighbors, but when it comes to an home aide or a daughter or son-in-law, it becomes more personal, and that's when people would feel uncomfortable. I'm not happy with the result before the graph shows zero amount of racism, because racism is so unfair and the world shouldn't be filled with hate against each other judged by the background and the color of our skin.
Have you heard any racist remarks recently?
Well, no, not like recently.
How about in the past, when you were younger?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's like I think the everyday racism is probably the worst. The racism that is like hidden and covered by like sarcastic remarks and humor. So I think probably there's the maybe biggest problem that we have regarding racism. I mean, like the racists and those people who have kind of a different opinion that like most of us have. I don't think they are the biggest threat, even though they can do harm with their words or like violence and stuff. I don't think they're the biggest problem, but I think the biggest problem in society is like the everyday racism that is hidden in like funny things and humor. There's always some bit of like reality or truth in every joke. So I think there's what we have the biggest job to do.
I agree. Have you ever seen, do you remember a single event of racism? For example, a teenager picking on another teenager because of his or her color of skin.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I had a friend who was adopted, and every once in a while, like we can hear something like comments regarding his eyes, like his Asian looks, or like his skin color. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that'll be all.
Yeah. Okay.
My grandmother worked in a home for refugees some years ago, and she has met a lot of different persons with a lot of different meanings. And she could tell about many incidents where she has met daily racism. And the first thing she told me was when she worked on one of those homes and she tried to go out and say hello to some new neighbors, but they just refused her and said, "I don't want to talk to you," and just walked away. And another thing she told was when a boy she knew was taking the bus home from the city, he ran over a woman who has fallen, and he offered his help, but the woman just said, get away from me. And when she was going to find an apartment for some refugees, the man who was renting it out asked what color is it on their skin. That was like the first thing he asked about, not if they were quiet, have a lot of parties, or such things that can be normal to ask when you're renting out an apartment.
How do you feel about the current global state of racism?
I would say that it has improved significantly over olden days. I mean, you had slavery and the days of inequality, and if you look at America now, you have, or had, a black president. So it has been significantly improved, but it's still a problem though.
In which way do you see racism as a problem?
I think the main issues are within educational systems or any public establishments that requires interaction. Particularly in education for younger students. If there's problems with racism there, it will affect them significantly for the rest of their lives if it goes wrong for the student.
How do you think the younger age group would be affected by racism?
I think they would be more likely to be bullied by other children or some that are a little older, but this could have significant damage to the psyche of the kids and cause psychological problems that could be significant later in life.
Wouldn't you say that the issue of bullying would happen with or without racism?
Well, yes, it would happen with or without it, but in certain environments I would say it's more likely to happen because of it. Because it's such a significant problem in certain areas of the world.
Seems logical. Do you know what everyday racism or casual racism is?
I suppose that would be slang or certain racist slurs that get thrown around without being maliciously meant every time.
Correct. Do you feel this is an issue that needs to be addressed?
I think this is an issue that mostly takes form in jokes or sarcasm, so I'm not sure if I would call it a global issue, but it's still something that would be uncomfortable or unfortunate for some people, those that are victim to it, and I still think it could be significant in making relationships and workplace environments and stuff like that.
Now, I could sit here all day giving you cold hard facts and statistics about racism and xenophobia, or give you interviews of people who have not experienced racism firsthand, but instead I decided to look up some posts from brave hearts who have shared their experience with racism firsthand, and I've chosen the best one that I found, and I will present it to you here. In 1982, when I was 13 years old, I wanted to go to a comic book store in a section of Brooklyn called Canarsie. At the time, Canarsie was ethnic, white, working class. I got off at the bus stop and started walking to the comic book store. A car stopped and a man got out and yelled at me to get out of his neighborhood. I distinctly remember him telling me, if I came to your neighborhood, I'd be jumped. As I walked away, I turned to look at him going into his car to get a stick or a blunt instrument. I realized then that he wanted to make sure I never came back to his neighborhood again. He chased me down the street. While running, I saw an elderly white woman and her black caretaker sitting outside. I ran towards them and the man turned around and walked away. Now, as you can tell from this piece, racism is still very much an issue, one of which can cause serious damage to your psyche. This damage can garner feelings of self-doubt, it can garner, in some extreme cases, feelings of fear of others, lack of trust in others. This turns the issue of xenophobia and racism into a serious issue, and this is why I'm baffled that there are so many people thinking that the issue of xenophobia and racism is just near extinction. I will hand it to them though. We have improved drastically since, say, the 50s, but in many ways we've taken steps backwards in ignoring the issue, in shoving it under the rug, thinking that nothing's happening. This is why I believe we need to shine a light on this issue. The newer generation needs to spread the word, try to rid ourselves of the issue that is racism and xenophobia. Thank you.